record button, so it'd be a shame to mess that up now. There we go. Good. So I'll just give a very quick introduction to the video, and then I'll kind of say hello, and then we can kick off. Does that sound okay?
Yes, sure.
Great. And I'm pronouncing your name Margarita Meklina?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect.
And you, how do I pronounce your name?
Ewan?
Ewan. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a west coast of Scotland first name and an Irish surname, so it confuses everybody equally. So it's
Okay.
It's good. Good. All right. Well, in that case, let me just bring up my little piece of text. Good. Okay. So welcome to another episode of Meet the Writers. This is a short form video series where we talk to the poets and writers who have contributed work to Structo 20. And actually, this is the first one of these that we've had since getting the magazine back from the printers. So it's really nice to today be talking to Margarita Meklina. Hi, Margarita.
Hi, Ewan.
Thanks for taking the time to talk. It's as I say, it's a different one compared to the others, since we actually have the thing in our hands, which is really nice. But thanks for taking the time today.
Yes, thanks for inviting me.
So you're a writer, an essayist, and we have a short story from you in the issue. I found it quite a hard one to describe to people. So I'm going to cheat and ask you if you would. How would you describe Grandmother Frost?
I think it's a story about dreams. It's a story about a girl who believes in Santa Claus, but at the same time, it's parallel to a story of a man who actually he is a woman. So he also would like to approach a Santa Claus and ask, become outside what he feels inside, to be a woman perhaps, but then also this little girl is his daughter, so he relates to her. But at the same time, it's a little bit lyrical, because it's not only this girl approaching Santa Claus or this man wanting to approach Santa Claus, to be a woman, but it's also kind of lyrical letters also, because when I was in Ireland, I went to this castle. And so as the story is based on the real story, so I said, look, there is this girl, and she wants to approach the Santa Claus. The other people tell her like Santa Claus doesn't exist, and then she has some problem maybe with her relationship with her father, who thinks he wants to be a woman. And then the people in the castle, which is like in Ireland, they said, well, you just have to write these letters, and reach out to the children so they respond and they believe in magic. So in my story, there are also these letters that are sent to this castle, kind of miraculous castle, and the letters about love, and then they go back and forth, and nobody knows who writes these letters. And that's like an idea that, love exists, and, there are these mysterious messages, but nobody knows who is writing them. So that's how I would characterize the story. It's just the little pieces here and there, and who is right, this little girl, to community in him, and also to him, the estranged.
I think we may have lost you for that last little section. You were just saying that it's divided into sections, and I think we missed that last bit.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that this mysterious messages that are going to the castle and back, because they show that there is love no matter what. Like there is some estrangement between the girl and her father, and then her father feels estranged from his own male body, and he wants to be a woman. But then, besides just talking about these people as main protagonists in the story, I also talk about like this mysterious messages, and when there is some void, it's always can be filled with some kind of messages of who knows what, and there are no real protagonists, but there are some kind of mysterious messages maybe from the universe that talks to us and remind us that we are connected somehow. So that's how the story, you know, unfolds. Is this girl writing to Santa Claus? Is this man wanting to approach the Santa Claus, maybe to become a woman? But then there are also this kind of mysterious letters kind of filling the void that these people feel in their hearts that something is missing. And then, so it's kind of like universe is connecting to them and say, you know, you're not alone, there is something else going on. So that's how the story is structured.
It rewards rereading a great deal. It's been really nice. There's always a bit of a kind of mental gap after the issue goes off to printers and then comes back, and you know, you spent so long with it in editing or design or whatever, and to come back, and it's such a compassionate piece of writing, that the fact that it is the universe, bearing witness to some really, some longings of various types. It's very powerful. I had a couple of very specific questions, which before the general, you have them as some of the sections as kind of numbered sections. So the story is divided into parts within parts almost, and they're numbered. That's very unusual in short stories. Was there a specific reason behind that? Do you remember? Or did it just feel right?
I think it's just easier for me to, when I separate the story in smaller parts, because like our memory, I think it's all kind of flashes of things. You see like one episode, you imagine it as one kind of cluster of things and emotions. So I don't see a story as the like continuum or continuation or the continuing story. I feel like it's like parallel universes almost. Like I think how I was trying to do it, it would be 1, 2, 3, it would be different people. Like one would be one, and you write about the young child of 6 years old, and then number 2 you write about her father who is like 55, and so on, because I feel like each person is kind of an entity or universe in itself, and so they have their whole story kind of like in a glass bowl. So it's not always they continuing. The story doesn't always continue, but it's each person is like a story. So that's why I separated it. First, I can't just write from A to Z. I feel like it's like emotions can be relayed as just like big balls of emotions or clusters. So that's how memory works. It's never kind of continuous. Like when they talk about like domestic violence, for example, I went to a couple of like domestic violence trials, and they say the real victims, they never can tell the story from A to Z because their trauma kind of blocks them. So they only would talk about like certain things that really traumatize them. But that's how human mind, I think, works. It's hard to do from A to Z. It's something not natural in that. I think it's more natural just to show the cluster of emotions, cluster of things, and that's why I put 1, 2, 3, because it's 3 different stories, like reflecting kind of clusters of emotions.
It's interesting because it only really occurred to me afterwards that it was unusual. At the time, it made sense, but it was just afterwards I was like, huh, this is unusual. I haven't seen this before. Anyway, that was just something that I was interested in. Now, your mother tongue is Russian.
Yes.
Was this written in Russian? When did you write this? Do you remember when you wrote this one?
I think I wrote it maybe a couple of years ago.
And was it translated recently, or do you have an ongoing relationship with? And the translator is Melanie Moore. Is that a translator that you've worked with often, or was this the first time?
It was the first time. I actually posted on Facebook, and I said this is a story I feel strongly about because I think it also talks about a transgender person. Because I have a friend in Ireland who has to hide his identity. He looks like a man, and sometimes he would meet me as a woman, and then he meets me, or she meets me as a man, in hiding from, you know, his relatives. And so I felt strongly about him and his struggle of her, you know, if he identifies as her. So I posted on Facebook and I said, I'd like to find a translator. And then my translator, she said, well, I'd like to translate it. I heard about your writing. And, you know, Melanie Moore, she translated other important Russian writers. And so we started working on that. And that was the whole adventure in itself, because at the time I lived in Ireland and she lived in Greece. And so we were corresponding online and talking about the translation and understanding. And we had some issues when we were translating, and even miscommunications, because like Melanie was saying, like, look, you know, you have this person who is a hoarder. In my story, we have this person who's a hoarder. Said, well, we have to feel sorry for that person because they have this disease. And I said, I don't feel sorry for one of the main characters, because like they're a hoarder, like, because, and she said, well, we have to feel like sorry for that person. So we had some kind of disagreements of things and how to translate things. So it was not an easy, it was a kind of bumpy road, you know, but then at the end, so we were very happy that we finally completed it and we found some kind of understanding, because like Melanie was understanding my approach. I felt like more understood at the end.
Yeah, and it's as I say, it's quite a subtle story in its impact, I guess, and that's something that's hard to do in the original, never mind in translation. So yeah, that must have been quite a challenge, but it's really nice to have it. We actually have two stories in translation in this issue, and both of them are some of the more not adventurous necessarily in form, but adventurous in terms of storytelling and what they managed to pack into a relatively short space. So yeah, to be a translator of something like that must be a challenge. But it's really interesting to see the result of that. So we're aiming to keep these videos relatively short, and it will be lovely to carry on and on. But are you working on anything now? Are you in a creative period, or are you in a, like many people, just in a getting on with the day-to-day?
Oh yes, I completely switched now to English. After writing like at least 28 years in Russian and publishing books in Russian, I switched to English, and I'm writing a new novel that is called something like Divorce with Coronavirus. And it's reporting, as I live in California now, it's reporting on situation in California and how people are panicking about the virus, but then the main protagonist is also going through divorce, and she also thinks her spouse is coronavirus, trying to control everything, and she's trying to divorce both this chaos of the coronavirus and also her spouse. So it's multi-voiced novel where I have like some lines like, we the people of California want to make sure we protect our population from death, and to avert death we have to wear masks. And then I have like, with the children, and then there are children involved in the divorce, so there are different voices. And then with the nurses of California, with the air pilots of California, how everybody tries to protect the population, and then population, you know, has its own problems and going through divorces, and then the children are kind of suffering. I kind of like, I had this collective voice, and it's kind of based on Agatha Christophe's novel Notebook, because somebody told me about this writer, Agatha Christophe, and she was using this for her twins. There were twins in the story, and they say like we, they always talk we, and they have children in the story, and they also like talk about themselves as we, but then also there are we the people of California, and then we like the mothers divorcing our abusive spouses. So I have a lot of we. So it's like it's going well. I'm pretty prolific now, and I'm pretty happy with my novel, and I'm not planning to return to Russian anymore.
No. Wow, that's yeah, that's quite a switch. It's yeah, that must be quite a do you, I guess if you've lived so long in English speaking countries, having the internal dialogue also switching, is that something that's happened already?
Yes, I think so, because I since 1994 I live in the US. I lived in Ireland. Now I'm back in the US, and so there is no more cultural connection to Russia, especially also because of the political situation. I just kind of gave up on Russia. I still didn't give up, I guess, on America, so then I'm writing in English now. But there is no connection linguistically anymore with Russia, because I hardly have anybody to talk in Russian to, and it's only on Facebook, and Facebook becomes more kind of aggressive, so you talk to Russian people, well, you talk also to American people, and people are all up in arms about everything because everybody is so stressed, traumatized by the virus. And so there is no dialogue anymore on Facebook with Russian people for me, so I don't feel any connection anymore because there's nobody to talk to anymore who would talk nicely and slowly and talk about art to me. So it's just, at certain point you just like stop writing. Like I think Nabokov, he went to America, and after a certain point he stopped writing in Russian, and it was longer for me than I ever thought. But I think this year is crucial. I'm not writing in Russian anymore, and just go back to like English nonstop.
The only contemporary author I read who writes in Russian is a Ukrainian, Andrei Kirkov.
Yes, he wrote about penguins,
yeah,
right? Penguin.
yeah, Death and the Penguin, exactly. And he's written quite a good. He had a diary of the Ukraine situation. The titles escaped me, but yeah, it's interesting times, as they say, with Russia at the moment. Do you? Yeah, I mean that's a conversation in itself, isn't it? But it's really nice to hear that you have the freedom, the artistic freedom to make the decision, and you clearly have the capacity to move to an entirely different language, and yeah, and just, as you say, be so prolific in that. And yeah, I would highly recommend people check out this story. It's quite something. So thanks for taking the time. When we sign off, I just have a couple of things I want to mention, but let's formally sign off here. So thanks again.
Okay,
For taking
thank
the
you
time to
very
chat.
much, Ian.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. That was fun.